question today. Lisa Bates is going to talk to you for about 40 minutes or so and take questions. And usually if you have questions during the presentation, ask. Currently, and recently, Lisa is the Chief People Officer at a new firm called Cummings. And she'll tell you all about that. Working with several people that she's worked with in the past. And would you call it a medical tech, med-tech?
Biotech, life sciences.
And prior to that, she's held other senior level human resource management positions. She was a senior VP of human resources at a financial services company in Jacksonville called Triad. She worked at that level in legacy companies as well as startups. And so a career with many levels of responsibility in different industries. And so she's going to share a lot of those perspectives with you this morning, and we hope you enjoy it. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you. And like Bill said, jump in at any time, ask questions, because I'll forget by the end, and you may forget by the end too. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. And we're in a business overview this morning, right? Well, I didn't, at 15 say I want to be an HR manager when I grow up. Our career paths are dictated by what we need and our values are, but also by where the world brings us, people we meet and subjects we study that grab our attention and engage us. I started off, my career in retail banking, branch management. My undergrad degree is management. From management and leading teams, I moved into training and development, coaching and helping other leaders develop and things like that. And the training and development is what led me into human resources and human capital management. We accomplish what we want to do, and then we need more to be challenged. And so over my career, I've been ambitious, and I've grown in my companies and built companies from 2 people up, and worked in companies of 6,000 employees. And the different challenges around how you manage people in groups that size is what's really interesting to me and keeps me engaged in what I'm doing. The middle button?
Upper right.
Okay. The role of HR leadership and human capital management it varies depending on the size of the company. In terms of compliance, once you get to 50 employees in a company, different federal, state, and local laws apply. So the size of the company determines how we address and facilitate the legal environment around what we're doing. Certainly the culture and work environment. If we're a company and we're about 23 people, 25 people, we have a different rapport and different access and different communication styles versus a 23,000 employee company that's all over the globe. So all of those things impact how we work together, our behavior, and how we lead. No matter what business you enter into, what callings you're drawn to, your core values, what you believe is right and wrong, is what drives everything you do. And as leaders, our core values define our company's mission and what we're going to do. What you value is reflected in your behavior. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And all the stakeholders that are involved in a business are our management, all of the troops and all of the team members that are working, but also our vendors, also our business strategic alliances where we work together on other initiatives. So stakeholders aren't just you and I and getting our paycheck, but everyone that our companies touch, and that includes our communities too, and how we are involved in our communities and how we behave in our communities. So the large versus small companies, these things are very, very different, and it's, called the same thing, but the practical side of it is different in how we manage our people depending on the size of the company. Okay, our values, what's important to us is what drives our behavior. Ethics are our behaviors in the workplace, how we're acting. And these are the things that are what drive our culture. If we put a beautiful value statement, value and a mission statement for our company and say we value integrity and we value each team member, but our behavior every day doesn't reflect that, it doesn't reinforce that or facilitate that, this is going to, your culture and what you see every day is based on the behaviors that you see. And as leaders, we can tell people what to do, but the most effective way to show importance of something is to model the behavior we want. If it's important to me to show up on time, if I respect everybody on my team, I show up on time because that shows respect to everybody else. So if one of our core values is respect, that's where you have to drill down to what does respect look like. Showing up on time, keeping our word. When we say we're gonna do something, do it. When we mess up, and we're all gonna make mistakes, we say, yep, got it, won't happen again. And we move on. And as leaders, if we create an environment where people are free to make mistakes, that's a safe environment. If people aren't fearful about making mistakes or being wrong or being frightened about saying the wrong thing, that safe environment is about we're all able to express ourselves and mess up and make mistakes, but through that we're going to innovate and be creative. I'm going to talk a little bit, Bill touched on my career that's been, what I've liked about what I do in the human capital side is that I've been able to work across all sorts of businesses and industries and take what I know and my coaching and leadership and apply it in different scenarios. So it makes me a generalist. Parex USA, international manufacturing firm owned by a French holding company. So we manage the U.S. side of stucco and external finishing systems for commercial buildings. So we're talking stucco plants and paint plants and entry-level employees and ESL employees. So we're all not on the same page when we're communicating. The exciting part about working for an international company is we had expats all the time. So I heard Portuguese and French in the hallways and got to communicate with people with a global perspective that were based in France or based in South America that came and spent 6 months with us. How we learned from each other and the different perspective were fascinating, and I think it helped us all really grow. Because when you think about perspective, we all see that there's a desk right here with paper on it, right? But it looks this way to me and it looks different to everybody else. You're seeing it from it's the same thing, but it looks different to all of us. And that's how we need to think about perspectives when we're talking to others and when we get input from others. We're looking at the same thing, but we're seeing it very, very differently. So Parex, some of the challenges there, my CEO was from Brazil. So South American, Latin American, heuristic, mindsets, views of how we did things. But me as the HR leader, I have to be joined at the hip with our CEO so that we are putting the right policies in place, putting the right plans in place, so we're doing the right thing. And so Rodrigo had to learn about what things it's okay to say maybe in a global environment, but not okay to say in California when you're dealing with your staff. So those are the kind of things that I take as part of my fiduciary responsibility to a company, is keep my boss out of the papers. And it's coaching and that kind of leadership that I get value from my job. Sound United, internet, tech firm. We made speakers, I'm gonna forget. Speakers, sound bars, audio tech, very, very forward-thinking company. Huge billion-dollar company, and I ran an office in Vista, California. Super, super smart people. One of the challenges of a company that's innovative and creative and something that's easy for us to do, we start a company, so we're gonna draw, our friends and the people we know and the people we understand into it, because that's where we feel safe. But this company, our CEO was young, professional, Ivy League graduate, early 40s. The entire executive team were young, white, Ivy League graduates, super smart, and all in their early 40s. And they all kind of went to the same schools. Well, when you get a homogeneous group like that, with the same educations and backgrounds and stories, that doesn't foster innovation and creativity. The big thing about diversity is bringing people in from everywhere because of their different experiences and stories, and that's what adds texture to our organizations and allows us to be exponentially more creative and more innovative, because we're not all thinking the same thing and agreeing with the same thing and using the same process to do anything. We want people on our teams that say, hey, there might be a better way to do this. And we're not gonna necessarily get that if we only hire and only acquire like-minded, similar people. Aside from, that doesn't look really good in transparency terms, and we wanna make sure that our company looks like our communities and behaves well in our communities. So that's some of the problems that can happen if you have a homogeneous leadership team and organization. Triad Financial Services, this for me was kind of like going to work for a dinosaur. A 60-year-old finance company, old boys club, because it was a mortgage organization, so slow moving, very bureaucratic, clear lines of leadership and authoritarian oriented. Well, those kind of organizations, wildly successful, they were wildly successful, so they didn't feel like they needed to fix anything or change anything. But I always said they had a magic front door. I walked in there and it was like going back to 1985, because they were still, nothing was automated. They were still working, the entire accounting department was still working on Excel spreadsheets. They were doing payroll and time and attendance by hand, and then somebody was inputting it into a computer. And I got everything. I spent 2.5 years getting that organization automated and reducing waste, optimizing all of our processes, because no one was auditing or looking at anything because we were making money. So reconciliations weren't done. We have X number of people on the payroll and we're paying this much out. No one was making sure that all of that was correct and accurate. So I found a lot of money and fixed a lot of basic problems that you don't think happen at that level, right? Big companies, they're successful. We don't need to look at what they're doing, but we can always look at optimizing and being more efficient and saving money and being very, very conscious of our resources. Now, Prove Biosciences, I went to work for 2014, I believe. Very exciting biotech firm. Had grown really, really fast, so that was one of the problems. I got there and there were 77 employees. Within 15 months, we had over 320 employees. So growing really fast, moving too fast. We didn't have systems that supported an organization that size. And like I said, you're talking about starting with 20 employees. It's very different when you're up over 300, and the compliance, that applies the perception of deep pockets. Company looks big and successful, so it's perceived they've got a lot of money, and that adds an element of risk, in terms of employees, in terms of lawsuits, in terms of potential legal and complaint rich, and plus you've got the issue of takeovers. Triad was actually acquired by a competitor when they were trying to acquire another company, and suddenly it happened like overnight. Perception is a big opportunity for all companies, but it's very, very important that we're attentive to it and we manage it the right way. And going back to Prove, innovative, entrepreneur, super smart guy. He started 4 companies that have been successful, started Prove in 2010, grew exponentially, was making money. Intellectual property and algorithms that he created, so an inventor, and we had all of this patented because, you know, he owned it, and it was super, super powerful and innovative, and was enacting change in doctors and their diagnostics. What our mission at Prove was to strangle the opioid crisis in America. And in the first 6 years, studies showed that for the first time in 14, 15, and 16, opioid abuse and death started going down. What we do is genetic testing, gives doctors information so they can make better diagnostic decisions. Our proprietary tests are pain perception, opioid dependency, addiction, and them all. Pain perception, NSAID abuse, addiction, and then opioid, just blanked on my word. But basically, how your body treats opioids. If your pain perception is low, so what I think hurts really bad, you think is about a 3, and suddenly your pain spikes, you go to a doctor, and a doctor says, well, we've got to give you something to make you feel better. We've got to take care of this pain so we can take a look at it. But if your body metabolism, that's the word I was looking for, metabolizes it quickly, you come back to your doctor in 2 months and you're still having the pain, you're taking the pills, but it's not working. So heuristics are, well, we'll give you a little bit more medicine and maybe that will help. Well, with drugs like opioids, we know what the cost has been. And chronic pain in America is more of our health care cost than diabetes, heart disease, and obesity combined. That's chronic pain, and that's bad knees, bad backs, injuries, things like that. Our entire economic system is based on the majority of life sciences, biosciences, focusing their efforts on how do we address pain, chronic pain around the world. And that's why I work in this field. It's important to me to work for a mission-driven company, to know that the work we're doing every day means something that can adds value to the world, adds value to people's lives. You have a great company, you're a great leader, you have great ideas, and you don't manage the optics, you don't manage the perceptions around your company. I take a very hard line around anybody encroaching on your technology. My boss's mantra was, somebody's gonna take a swing at me, I'm gonna punch first. I got there and they were involved in 9 lawsuits, 4 of them intellectual property, 5 employee issues. So I got policies and procedures in place to take care of those things, but when you have a host of disgruntled former employees out in the world, even you can do the right thing and have the best intentions, but if you don't manage those things well, how do I make this work? Bad things can happen, and I always have to have Bill help me with the technology here. I got the videos to run out. There we go. That should just go. There we go, thank you. This is, where's sound? Well,
It's at the bottom, like, the, next to the time and the date on the right, yeah.
Help doctors identify who is the
okay,
low-risk
thank
patient
you.
that can use opioids
Let me go
and
back
who's the
here.
high-risk patient
You
that
need to
shouldn't.
hear this.
President announcing $1 billion
Brian
of
mentioned,
money
thank you.
towards this. Congress looking to take action. There are people rallying around this issue saying we can do better. We believe one of those things that's a part of the solution is to look at genetics. According to the American Society of Addiction Medicine and the National Institutes of Drug Abuse, about 50% of all substance abuse is due to genetic factors. It's not 100%, but it's 50%. That's a substantial amount. That should be part of the information that a doctor considers. That's something that we are trying to do at Prove Biosciences. It's why we are collaborating with some of the leading researchers in the field, why we have technologies out there that can help doctors identify who is the low-risk patient that can use opioids and who's the high-risk patient that you should avoid. It's why we're working with legislators and policymakers. We're trying to be a part of the solution.
You know, more people are now dying from these drug overdoses from the legal opioids than from all of these drugs combined. But for me, you know, if we could save one family the heartache and the suffering from so many parents that I've had to talk to over the years because they've lost a child that they love so much. Brian, if we can save one child a day, that's success.
Okay, so you see there was a hugely altruistic mission. We wanted to do something.
Now let's take a step back into the real world
Okay.
and evaluate or think about what happens when somebody smokes cannabis
Now I don't know how
or
to get rid of
ingests
it.
cannabis by way of edible or tincture or something of that
Well,
sort.
You do this.
Cannabis is very fast to enter the bloodstream. In fact, within 30 seconds, it's going to enter the brain and permeate throughout the brain and body. That's very, very fast. I mean, we contrast that with something like alcohol or even
There we go.
It is challenging to determine the true level of the patient's pain, because somebody may say my pain is 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, but somebody else that has a different kind of a chemical makeup might say that their pain is only 5 out of 10. It's very difficult, it's very subjective.
The doctor has to figure out, is this patient telling the truth? Is this patient lying because they want opioids? They have absolutely no idea, and that's literally either whether it's the 0 to 10 scale or smiley faces and frowny faces, is how we diagnose the most prevalent and most expensive healthcare condition in the United States. Our business is all around delivering information to improve those important and sometimes life-threatening decisions. We combine clinical information about a patient along with information about their genetics to be able to better understand how they feel pain, which medications they're most likely to respond to, and understanding which patients are at risk for abusing opioid pain medications.
I ended up having a lot of pain that I just couldn't catch up on. And went through the course of this, they sent me to pain management, who had me on morphine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, muscle relaxers, and Percocet. I was a non-functioning person, literally. They had labeled me as a drug seeker and that I had a very low pain tolerance. And in my past, I've had a very high pain tolerance. And then they sent me to a different doctor and he decided to do the test that Proof does. And sure enough, the test proved, literally, that I had a very high tolerance, as my doctor described it. I have the pain tolerance of an NFL football player. And then he also turned around and said, you shouldn't be on all these medications because I literally could have stopped breathing in the middle of the night. It turns out that I only needed one medication, so I got off 6 medications. So that, at a point in time, I was able to start functioning in the real world and be able to do what I normally do, which is run my business.
I think this kind of a genetic testing and knowing what the patient has in their genetic makeup before we start giving them medications would go a long way to prevent opioid addiction. I'm sure other doctors will catch on, and this may become one of our tools that everyone would be expected to use before dispensing medications.
At the peak, around 2016, we had more than 30,000 doctors using our test. And we're making some really big, important inroads, and Brian was in DC working with various politicians on healthcare, on the opioid crisis, trying to show that what he had come up with was a serious tool in resolving the errors in the way diagnostics were done. What we do is genetic testing, take a buccal cell out of the cheek, run that through our genetic analysis, and we learn that, oh yeah, you are highly susceptible to NSAIDs, so basically you're gonna be able to take a Tylenol and handle most of your pain. That's what these genetic tests do. But you mean well, you're good at what you do, you're super intelligent, you've got a great plan, you've built a great team, with the best intentions. Do that.
Click the volume in the bottom left.
There we go.
Boxes, putting them in this truck behind me, and also vans that are circling this parking structure. Well, here's what we know at this point. The company is called Proof Bioscience, and the FBI is investigating them at this point. This company is located off of Alton Parkway here in Irvine. Now, Proof Bioscience has touted itself as a leader in genetics testing related to opioid addiction. Their website says their genetics test can better understand an individual's pain tolerance and predisposition to opioid addiction. Now, although the FBI couldn't tell us much about this investigation, here's what they had to say.
This morning we executed a federal search warrant at approximately 7:30. It is an ongoing investigation out of our San Diego office. It involves healthcare fraud, and unfortunately we are not able to say anything more about it at this time. The affidavit supporting the search warrant is under seal.
So that's what they said. They said healthcare fraud. Now, we did try to reach out to the CEO of the company, Brian Meshkin. At this point, we have not heard a reply. Well, we've been here since about 11 o'clock this morning, and we've seen FBI
I left the company end of April 2017. June 8th, I believe that was. I got calls first thing in the morning. The team was there and didn't know what to do because the FBI was knocking on the door with a warrant. A cohort of disgruntled ex-employees made a complaint, an allegation to the federal government, and they said that we were committing fraud. We were billing for tests that weren't covered by Medicare, and we were paying doctors to do it. That was 2017. The company closed down, ceased operating completely, went into receivership in September, and started a horrific legal process that basically resulted in the company being destroyed, all of the people that worked for this company losing their livelihoods, executives being called to Congress, being deposed and defending themselves. Brian Meshkin, his 18-year marriage dissolved, his children don't speak to him. He lost everything. His ex-wife even turned against him and helped the government. 5 years later, that's more about, but in 2021, after everything was lost, it completely imploded, destroyed. Brian's life was destroyed. But eventually, after all of that, he was completely exonerated. Actually, 2 people at the Department of Justice were terminated because they handled this case frivolously. So he was exonerated of any and all wrongdoing. Okay, this is years later. He's already lost everything. Reputation in the marketplace, everything. But he being the fighter he is, being the CEO he is, you know, he was fighting hard and moving forward so fast. So he worked very hard to clear his good name. So here we have these are the various biotech and life sciences journals. The people that were on the forward-thinking life sciences group and cohort support Brian, support what he was doing, and have stood with him. Doctors that were doing the testing have, reached back out and supported him because did good work. But a couple of people getting together with nefarious intent can be that destructive. What I do in terms of my leadership in a company is set procedures and policies in place so that we don't have a host of disgruntled, awful employees that are mad and feel wronged. I had to teach Brian about not being personally engaged and not becoming, he was paying for people's rent when they couldn't make it due. He paid for a woman's, the funeral for her mother when she was when she couldn't. He cares about being a good guy. But those are the two of the people that helped to bring him down. I have to coach leaders to keep them out of trouble, to mitigate risk. It's really important that we're all working together. We all know the rules. We don't want a policy and procedure manual that's this big. We want very clear, very transparent policies and expectations about how we treat each other. Brian doesn't get to tell anybody, you're fired. I handle that. And then it happens appropriately, ethically, and people leave the company, and there aren't there are bad feelings, but I've mitigated the risk in there. So that's illustrates the importance of when you're running your companies and working for your companies and moving into leadership, the team that you have around you is really, really important. And those are strategic partners that help further the ethical and values and culture of a company. And being the people person, I have to always be joined at the hip, to the CEO. And you see this quote, and Brian's got a long statement he put, online, but that's how he feels now. Now, from the ashes of Prove and everything that happened, we're back. Brian is back. We are, we've got a company called Prove Genomics. We've got a company, Outcomeus, and another company called Humanity, that we're up and running, and we are, we've been reborn. Brian Kahn and I worked with him in Prove 1.0. We brought us both. Kahn's our chief technical officer. He's a unicorn of a brilliant guy. And we're back and doing what he wanted to do and fulfilling his mission and, fulfilling the goal of affecting pain management in this country by providing genetic information to doctors to help them be better diagnosticians. Brian he's humbled. He went through it. He went through it over the last, 8 years. But this is our executive team, and I wanted to touch a little bit on diversity. When you find the right people with shared values, with core values and core behaviors that align with yours, and you find the best people to do the jobs, with their stories and backgrounds, you naturally build diverse teams. Everything on a job description is you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, but that doesn't reflect what people are. If you have 30 parameters that you're trying to hire for, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're never gonna find that person. But if you find the right people with the right attitudes and personalities that align, it comes together in a diverse way. And this kind of diversity, we've got physicians on staff, we've got scientists on staff, researchers on staff from all different backgrounds from all over the world. We're now doing a venture with an Israeli company that has some really awesome ideas around being able to do genetic testing. We're gonna be able to create a chip that allows you to put some blood or saliva on it and use your phone to test whether or not you've got drugs in your system. And that is just the absolute beginning of what can really blow up. I mean, think about diabetics and people that have to monitor their insulin and other things. Just great things are going on. And I'm excited and proud to be part of this team again. But the cost was almost unbearable. So my message to you, I'm coming back around to values and ethics and how we behave and our culture, which is how we act in the workplace and how we treat each other every day, is the absolute foundation of building a company of integrity and a company that has a better chance of remaining stable and successful and growing. And we're doing important work and we're able to be doing it again, but the cost was very, very high. How you build your culture, how you get,
Question?
So you said you left Proof before all of, the sort of FBI search and the legal troubles.
If you had stayed, do you think you would have been able to like mitigate the fallout from that, or so how?
Not at that point, not at that
Once the search had already happened, you don't think?
already the FBI and the Department of Justice through the FBI was putting the case together. Had I remained, it's funny, no one's ever asked me that before, good question. Had I remained, I would have been on duty June 8th, I think it was, and been there to be the person that the warrant was served to. I could see that there were problems, and I had been working on mitigating them, but it wasn't happening fast enough, and my husband got a fantastic job opportunity, and we moved from Southern California to Jacksonville, and he's running a logistics company out here. So for me, you know, everything kind of came together at a good time. I could see that things were gonna blow up. There was a horrible article written in a genome on a website, and this guy just tore Brian up and made these accusations. It looks like people that were upset hired this guy to start the bad press, and I could see it was starting to snowball. And then I had my personal opportunity came up, and I was able to step away, and when I left, the company was in a financial crisis already, and it saved Brian, having to pay my salary. So I got out, but it was vicious, and like I said, we stayed in touch all this time, but the fact that he is back, and so resilient, and we're doing it again, I think it's a beautiful thing.
And were there like signs to you that the people who would end up like later slandering Brian, were there signs to you of who that was gonna be? And if so,
And Brian and I discussed them. Yeah, my job is not to tell a CEO how to run their company, but my job is to say, this and this and this are potential risks. This could cost us this way, but it's your decision to make. And he, has those rose-colored glasses, that entrepreneurial mindset that I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, and we're doing something good. And you don't always want to hear anything opposed to that. And I think that's a big part of what it was. He's remarried, has stepkids, he's a very happy guy now. But back to your culture, this is an important slide, because as an organization, you've got to define your values, and that's what we do. What's important to us? Is it integrity? Is it respect? Is it innovation? Do we care about our community? Define those values. Model the behavior you want to see. That's your ethics. What you know is important. The behavior you're going to do to enhance your ethics, and that creates the culture. Your culture, and our culture is what we do every day, and how we do it, and how we talk to one another. Oh, okay. I always give you an assignment. It's not your company's job to develop you necessarily. Your future, your success, your life is in your own hands. Always be, you're in school, you're started off the right way, but your professional development's important. Being involved in organizations and, for instance, I'm involved in HR organizations, national associations and things like that. They help me develop professionally. My own personal development, what can I do to be a better leader? And your assignment is to always read, don't stop reading, don't stop learning, and don't ever stop making yourself better. Read everything. I read the Stoics, and I always recommend you read the Stoics. Think about personal philosophy, because philosophy is how we define those values. And that's all very fascinating to me, but you wanna, when we get involved in our jobs and we're busy and we're tired and we're stressed out and we're working 80 hours a week, we don't think about these things. You're in school now, you're just trying to get to the end of the semester. You know, we have to focus on these big goals, but taking care of ourselves and educating ourselves the rest of our lives is our responsibility. So, my little coaching session there. Okay. Thank you very much for listening this whole hour, and you can reach me at outcomeus.com. It's outcomeus. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate.
You had mentioned experience in kind of like slower companies that haven't progressed much, and then also like kind of more like forward thinking and more like companies that develop quickly. In your experience, what was kind of the most like enjoyable workplace to be in?
What I always say is that Brian ruined me for other jobs. There are different personalities, different mindsets that we all thrive in different environments, but I like the creative startup world there's more stress, more excitement, more energy. I work with super smart people, way smarter than me. I mean, all of our scientists, but our developers, our software people that are working on our algorithms, these people are geniuses. I like being in that environment. But I'm senior in my career, so I've worked a whole lot of places, done a whole lot of things, and that's what I find that really fascinates me. And remember, you're gonna be doing this, whatever you choose to do to earn your living, you're gonna be doing it 50 or 60 hours a week. You'll stumble if you're not sure right now, and I think I've only known 2 people who ended up doing what they said they wanted to do when they were a kid that ended up there. You're gonna find a class that sparks something in you. You're gonna find a teacher or a mentor that sparks something within you to help you define where you wanna go. But do what you like, work with people you respect. We can't all be friends, but everybody can be friendly and treat each other with respect, and we can share value and learn to share in our successes together. And I started off in banking, finding, navy suits and plush carpeting, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Do you feel like being in a company with Brian again has affected your company's reputation, and potentially might have lost clients and stuff like that because of the past?
And that's a good question, and I'm sure we lost some, but almost virtually 100% of the doctors that we were working with have come back, have reached out to Brian and said, let me know when you come back because I need this testing. We also have a large group of individuals, of patients who were so positively affected by this that we're doing outreach now and we've got 250,000 samples in our database of this genetic material, and research is being done on that database, but I'm sure there was some attrition there, but what we're doing is good, and because we did a lot of things right, it's coming back. But I told you the cost to him personally was just catastrophic. So, I mean, it's such an interesting double-edged sword. Doing the right thing and being a good guy wasn't quite enough. You've got to think about the culture piece, and you've got to think about how you're behaving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if something else comes up, you could always ask, and we're in a